My name is Mallory Jensen. Back then, I was 26 years old, juggling school during the week and working weekend graveyard shifts at a half-forgotten Wendy-style fast food place off Highway 52 in rural Indiana. The building was old, held together by duct tape and luck, the kind of place where drunk locals or broke night owls came after midnight. I'd worked there for about 8 months and I thought I'd seen it all. Tweakers in the drive-thru, sad drunks crying over cold fries, raccoons in the parking lot. Nothing surprised me anymore. But one October night, everything changed. I was alone after my coworker Riley, a 17-year-old, clocked out at 2 a.m. The front doors were locked. The drive-thru switched to night mode. I was beyond exhausted, fighting to stay awake, when suddenly the door buzzer chimed. That buzzer only went off if the front doors opened, but they were locked. It dinged again. My heart started racing. I checked the doors and windows. Nobody. Outside, I finally noticed an old dirty car parked half on the sidewalk across the street. The driver's seat was reclined, and inside was a motionless shadow. Then the figure sat up, opened the car door, and stared right at me. Terrified, I backed away. Inside the restaurant, one of our odd regulars, Gretchen, a 78-year-old woman with late-stage dementia, was sitting with her coloring book. Out of nowhere, she looked up at me and asked clearly, "What did the man want, dearie?" Chills went through me. I hadn't told her about any man. Before I could process that, the drive-thru speaker crackled to life. A man's voice asked, "You open?" Relieved, I said yes, but instead of ordering, he let out a low, choking laugh. Then silence. Moments later, Russell, the janitor from the gas station next door, walked past. I flagged him down. He told me he'd seen a weird guy circling behind the building. Then another resident, Charlie, who had Alzheimer's, wandered into the dining room. Out of nowhere, he warned me, "Don't answer the door alone." "He might hurt you." When I asked why, Charlie smiled. "The man told me." Seconds later, I saw him. A pale man with hollow eyes, cracked lips, and a torn hoodie stepped out of the darkness and stared directly at me through the side window. I screamed. He bolted. The police came after my 911 call. They told me there had been a break-in just a few blocks away. A woman attacked in her home by a man searching for narcotics. They believed it was the same suspect. They said the restaurant's locks and alarm system probably saved my life. He was never caught, at least as far as I know. I quit soon after. To this day, I still have the picture I took of that old car. And whenever I drive past that restaurant, I feel it again, like someone watching me from the shadows just beyond the locked doors. My name is Gina, and when I was 21, I worked nights at a lonely little McDonald's off Highway 65 in Arkansas. It wasn't one of those busy city locations. It sat by itself at the edge of town, with nothing but a gas station across the road and a stretch of woods that seemed to go on forever. Most nights were slow. After midnight, the dining area was closed and only the drive-thru stayed open. The silence could feel both comforting and suffocating. The buzz of the soda machines, the hum of the freezer in the back, those sounds became my background music. That night, a Wednesday in late fall, the shift had been dragging. My manager, Darla, had stepped outside for a smoke. The rest of the crew had clocked out hours ago, leaving me alone inside the building. I was at the front counter, bent over a box of ketchup packets, trying to stay awake by organizing them into neat rows. That's when I felt it. A prickling at the back of my neck. That strange, instinctive feeling you get when someone is watching you. At first, I ignored it. Nights like these, your imagination could run wild. The reflections in the windows sometimes made it look like someone was standing outside when it was really just your own shadow. But then, movement. I turned my head slightly and my stomach dropped. There was a man standing at the front window, his face pressed so close that his nose flattened against the glass, leaving a greasy smear. I froze. He didn't knock. He didn't wave. He just stood there, watching me. His eyes were wide, unblinking, dark hollows in the dim light. For a few seconds, I tried to convince myself maybe he was just a customer who didn't realize the dining room was closed. But something about him was wrong. His clothes were filthy, stained jacket, ripped jeans, and his long, stringy hair clung to his forehead as if it hadn't been washed in weeks. His lips curled upward into a smile that felt too big, too deliberate. I looked away, pretending to focus on my ketchup packets. My heart was pounding so loud I swore he could hear it. And then came the sound. Tap, 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 slow, methodical, his fingernail against the glass. Every nerve in my body screamed at me not to look. But I couldn't help it. My eyes lifted and he was still there, hand raised, tapping in that steady rhythm. And then he mouthed words. I couldn't hear them, but I could read his lips clearly. "Let me in." I shook my head instinctively. His smile grew wider. He pressed his palm flat against the window, smearing it further, and with his other hand he reached into his pocket. For one horrible second he pulled something halfway out. A knife. The light above the entrance caught the dull shine of the blade. I stumbled backward, heart hammering in my throat. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my chest. I spun and ran toward the kitchen. That's when the drive-through headset on my ear crackled to life. At first I thought it was a customer, but what came through wasn't an order. It was a whisper. "I can see you." I ripped the headset off and threw it on the counter, shaking so badly I could barely breathe. Just then the door to the back swung open and Darla came inside, flicking her cigarette into the trash. I rushed to her, babbling about the man at the window. But when we looked, he was gone. The only sign he'd been there at all was the foggy smear where his face had been pressed, and faint streaks from his handprint. We locked the doors tighter and called the police. 2 officers showed up about 20 minutes later and searched the lot. They even shined flashlights into the tree line. Nothing. But one of the cops mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Apparently, there had been several reports of a vagrant harassing women at nearby businesses. A gas station attendant had even claimed a man with long, greasy hair tried to crawl through her service window while holding a knife. They never caught him. I tried to shake it off, but in the nights that followed, I saw him again. Not up close like before, but lurking. Once he stood under the far streetlight, barely within the glow, his head tilted as though he was studying me through the glass. Another time I was cleaning the play place, and when I looked into the reflection of the plastic slide, I swore I saw his face behind me. Each time, by the time anyone else looked, he was gone. I begged to be switched to daytime shifts, and eventually I was. But even now, years later, if I ever stop at a McDonald's late at night, I can't bring myself to look at the windows. Because I know what I'll see. That face, that smile, that steady, deliberate tapping on the glass, waiting for me to let him in. I was 25 when I got the job at the Wendy's off Highway 21 in northern Arkansas. Back then, my life felt like it was stuck in limbo. I dropped out of community college halfway through my environmental science degree, not because I wanted to quit, but because the Bills were winning the war against my future. My sister let me crash in her cramped duplex on Weller Street, and I promised her I'd save up, go back, finish school. The Wendy's job was supposed to be temporary, a placeholder. Nothing more than a paycheck and a way to chip away at the mountain of bills that seemed to grow no matter how much I worked. But that store, that lonely 24-hour Wendy's, it broke me in a way I didn't see coming. The building sat on the edge of town, past the strip malls and diners, just far enough that no one came unless they had a reason. Our neighbors were a rundown car wash, a midnight gas station, and a black wall of forest stretching for miles. The quiet should have been comforting. Instead, it was suffocating. For 6 months, I worked the same schedule, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The rule was simple. After 11, we closed the dining room and only served the drive-through. By midnight, the manager left, leaving me alone. Just me, the fryer oil, and the buzzing neon signs. Most nights were boring, lonely but safe, until the night everything went wrong. It was a Thursday night, chilly and slow. Carla, my manager, had been complaining about her daughter's grades during her shift. We joked about it for a while, and then she left just after midnight, jangling her keys as she disappeared out the back door. By 2:15 a.m., I had already cleaned the grill twice, stocked sauces, wiped down every counter. The last customer had been a trucker around midnight who ordered 2 Baconators and a Frosty. After that, silence. I was leaning against the counter, scrolling aimlessly on my phone when the drive-through headset pinged. It startled me. It was so quiet that the sudden noise sounded like a gunshot in my ear. I slipped the headset on. "Hi, welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead whenever you're ready." Nothing. I waited 5 seconds. "Hello?" Still nothing. Then I heard it, breathing, heavy, raspy, male, not a sound of someone about to order, more like someone standing too close to you in a dark room. I swallowed hard. "Sir, are you—" The voice cut me off. Low, sharp, too close. "Don't say anything. Just open the back door." My blood ran cold. At first I thought it had to be a prank. Maybe one of the high school kids from day shift messing with me. I even glanced around, half expecting to see someone hiding with their phone out, recording my reaction. Then the voice came again, harsher. I said, "Open the blank door." Now my stomach flipped. I tore the headset off, heart pounding. That's when it started. Bang! Something slammed against the back door. I froze. Bang! Again, louder. The steel door shook in its frame. I could see the handle jolt with every hit, like someone was throwing their whole body against it. My legs finally obeyed me. I ran. I sprinted to the office, slammed the door shut, twisted the lock, and yanked open the desk drawer. Inside was an old emergency radio Carla had said only worked if you were lucky. I tried calling 911 on my cell first. No signal. Nothing. I tried the radio. Static. I sat there, pressed against the door, trying to keep my breathing quiet as the pounding outside continued. Then, just as suddenly as it started, silence. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. The only sound was my pulse drumming in my ears. Finally, I cracked the office door and crept into the kitchen. Everything looked normal. The phone still said no service. I told myself it had to be some psycho messing around. Maybe a drunk, maybe someone high. Then I saw it. Blood. Dark smears streaked across the back door handle, the push bar, even across the concrete outside the little square window. Before I could even process it, the handle jiggled. I stumbled backward, eyes locked on that tiny window. And that's when I realized the worst part. He wasn't outside anymore. He was already inside. I turned and froze. He must have crawled through the drive-through window. I'd left it cracked after wiping the counters. The man stood there, tall, maybe mid-30s, dressed in a filthy white shirt drenched with blood, one shoe missing. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and blood. His hands shook as he raised something. A gun. My throat closed. "Get down," he said. His voice was too calm, too controlled. I didn't move fast enough. "Get down," he screamed, and I dropped to my knees, palms flat on the greasy tile. He stepped closer. The smell hit me then. Sweat, blood, roadkill, and something metallic like rust. "I'm sorry," he whispered almost to himself. I need your phone, your wallet, keys." "That's it," I stammered. "Take them. Please, just take them." He moved quickly, yanking my phone from my pocket, snatching my wallet from under the register, keys from the hook by the door. He scanned the kitchen, and his eyes landed on the roll of duct tape we used for sealing boxes. "Hands behind your back," he ordered. I hesitated. He raised the gun higher. "Don't make me do something I don't want to do." I obeyed. He tied my wrists too tight, then my ankles. My skin burned as the tape bit into me. "I'm not going to hurt you," he muttered, almost like he was convincing himself. I need a ride." And then, just like that, he was gone. I heard the jingle of my keys, the squeak of the door, then the roar of my truck's engine fading into the night. I lay there for what felt like forever, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. 10 minutes passed. then 20. Finally, I managed to wriggle one hand free. The tape was slick with grease and sweat. It peeled loose just enough. I ripped my hands out, freed my legs, and crawled to the office phone. My cell still had no service, but the hardline worked. When the dispatcher answered, I broke down crying. I could barely get the words out. She kept me calm, told me help was on the way. 20 minutes later, 2 cruisers arrived, guns drawn. They swept the building. By then, he was long gone. The next morning, detectives told me the truth. He was an escaped inmate, a violent offender with a history of armed robbery and assault. He had already killed a gas station clerk during his escape days earlier. They caught him in Hardlow, 40 miles east. He'd crashed my truck into a ditch outside a pawn shop and tried to sell my phone while bleeding all over the counter. A customer called it in. The police told me I was lucky, that maybe he didn't kill me because he was already injured. Or maybe he just didn't feel like it that night. I never went back to Wendy's. Didn't even pick up my last check. I had it mailed. To this day, I still can't hear the ping of a drive-through headset without flinching. That soft little sound that used to mean customer now only means one thing to me: danger. Because when you're all alone in a fast food restaurant off a dark stretch of highway, there's no one around to hear you scream. I was 19 when I got my first job at a Wendy's in rural Kentucky. At that age, you don't think about danger. You just want money for gas, food, and maybe enough left over for cheap weekend beers with friends. When the manager, Mr. Lee, asked if I'd be willing to cover a few overnight shifts, I said yes without hesitation. I mean, how bad could it be? The Wendy's sat at the edge of town, right off Route 64. The kind of place that got busy during dinner hours but turned into a ghost town after 10 p.m. Our only neighbors were a liquor store that closed at midnight and a motel with a glowing vacancy sign that looked like it hadn't been replaced since the 70s. The building itself always felt wrong. Maybe it was the buzzing of the fluorescent lights that never quite stopped. Maybe it was the way the shadows stretched in the corners of the dining room as if the light bulbs were too tired to push them away. But the worst part, the part I still dream about, was the walk-in freezer. It was my 3rd overnight shift when it happened. The night started like any other. Boring. I mopped the floors, restocked the sauce station, wiped down every surface until it practically gleamed. By 1 a.m., I had nothing left to do except kill time until 6. That's when Mr. Lee's voice echoed in my head. Before he left earlier, he'd said, "Don't forget to rotate the stock in the freezer. Last kid didn't and half the patties went bad. Don't make me dock your pay." I sighed, grabbed my gloves, and headed for the freezer. The moment I pulled the heavy steel door open, the cold air slapped me in the face. I hated that room. The way sound seemed to die the second the door shut. The way your breath fogged up so fast it felt like you were choking on your own lungs. Inside, the shelves were stacked with boxes of frozen patties, fries, chicken nuggets, all lined up in neat cardboard towers. I pushed deeper, carrying the clipboard, checking dates. Then I heard it. A laugh. Soft, high-pitched. A girl's laugh. I froze, pen slipping from my fingers. I wasn't crazy. I knew I'd heard it. It was quick, sharp, like the sound of a kid giggling into their hand. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice shaking. My breath puffed out in a cloud hanging in the air too long. Silence. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a pipe creaking. Maybe my brain playing tricks. I bent down, grabbed another box of patties. That's when I heard it again. Closer, louder. A little girl laughing, this time followed by a whisper I couldn't quite make out. The pen fell again. My hands went numb, not from the cold, but from pure fear. I spun around, searching the rows of shelves. Empty. Nothing but meat and cardboard. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A small figure crouched between the stacks of fries. I blinked, and it was gone. My chest tightened. I dropped the clipboard and sprinted for the door. But when I grabbed the handle and yanked, it didn't budge. I pulled again, Harder. Nothing. The freezer door was jammed. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. I banged my fists against the steel. "Hello! Anybody out there? No one!" I turned back, breath ragged, and that's when I saw her. A girl, no older than 8, wearing a filthy pale blue dress, her hair tangled and frozen stiff at the ends. Her lips were purple, her skin had that sickly, frost-bitten blue tint, and she was standing right in front of the shelves smiling at me. I stumbled backward, hitting the racks of patties. "What the hell?" She tilted her head. Her teeth chattered when she spoke. "It's cold in here, isn't it?" Her voice wasn't like a normal kid's, it was layered, like two people speaking at once, one high, one low. I pressed my back against the door, shaking. "What do you want?" Her smile widened. "Stay. Play with me." I slammed my fists against the door again, screaming, crying, begging someone, anyone, to hear me. My knuckles bled from hitting the steel, but the door stayed shut. When I looked back, she was closer, just a few feet away. Frost clung to her eyelashes. She whispered again, "Don't leave me alone in here. It's so cold." The air grew heavier, sharper, as if the freezer itself was swallowing me whole. My vision blurred. I dropped to my knees, gasping for breath. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the girl reaching out, her frozen hand inches from my face. When I woke up, I was on the floor of the kitchen. The morning crew stood around me, wide-eyed. Apparently, they found me unconscious in front of the freezer door at 6:15 a.m. The handle wasn't broken. It opened easily when they pulled it. The doctor said I had mild hypothermia. He asked why I'd gone into the freezer without a jacket, why I'd stayed so long. I couldn't answer him. I quit that job 2 days later. But here's the part that haunts me most, something I didn't tell anyone at the time. When I picked up my stuff from the break room, I overheard 2 of the older workers talking. One of them said, "You know a little girl froze to death in that freezer back in '92, right? Got locked in when nobody noticed. By the time they found her, it was too late." The other worker shook their head. "Management doesn't like us bringing it up. Bad for business." I walked out without a word. But that night, when I tried to sleep, I swore I heard that same laugh echoing in my room, and ever since then, no matter where I go, every time I open a freezer door, I half expect to see her standing inside, smiling, waiting for me to join her. When I was 21, I worked the graveyard shift at a Wendy's in southern Ohio. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid rent for the tiny one-bedroom apartment I shared with my girlfriend, Sarah. Back then, I figured life was simple. Work, pay bills, hang out on weekends, nothing more. But the night shift at Wendy's changed me. Something about working in a fast food restaurant past midnight. It does things to your brain. The world outside feels deserted. The hum of the fryers and soda machines sound too loud, like they're breathing with you. Every shadow stretching across the dining room feels alive. The managers always said the same thing. Lock the doors at 11. Only the drive-thru after that. And every time they handed me the keys and left for the night, I felt that same sinking feeling. The kind you get walking into a basement alone. It was a Tuesday night, dead slow. By 1:30 a.m., I'd had only 2 customers. Both truckers, both in and out quick. I was wiping down the counter when the drive-thru headset beeped. I slipped it on. "Welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead with your order, Silence." I repeated it, a little louder. "Go ahead whenever you're ready." Nothing. I frowned, leaned closer to the monitor, expecting maybe static, but instead I heard something else. Breathing. Low. Steady. Right in my ear. "Hello?" I asked cautiously. No answer, just that slow, heavy breathing like someone pressed right against the microphone. I ripped the headset off, heart pounding. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp taps against the drive-thru window. I froze. No cars were in the lot, no headlights, no engines, just empty blacktop stretching under the flickering parking lot light. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. And there he was. A man. Tall, thin, face pale under the fluorescent glow. His eyes were too wide, too bright, fixed directly on me. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. Just staring. His hand was still pressed against the glass where he'd knocked. Every instinct in me screamed to move, but my body wouldn't listen. Finally, I forced myself to step back, shaking. "We're closed inside, sir. Drive-through only." My voice cracked. He didn't respond. He just kept staring, unblinking. And then, without warning, he slid his other hand down the glass. Slowly, like he was tracing something invisible. His nails made a faint scratching sound that cut through the silence. I backed away further, heart hammering. Then the lights flickered. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Long, slow blinks of darkness. When the lights came back fully, he was gone. I ran to the window, pressed my face close, scanning the lot. Empty. Nothing but my reflection staring back at me. I told myself it had to be some drunk. Maybe a homeless guy. Someone messing around. But when I turned back toward the kitchen, I saw it. A wet handprint. Pressed against the inside of the drive-through window. My stomach dropped. I hadn't opened that window all night. No one had been inside. I staggered back, knocking over the mop bucket. My shoes splashed in the dirty water, but I barely noticed. That's when the headset beeped again. Against my better judgment, I picked it up, hands trembling. At first, just static. Then that same heavy breathing. Louder this time. And then, a whisper. "Look behind you." My blood ran cold. I spun around. Nobody. But on the freshly cleaned counter, smeared in condensation, were words spelled out in dripping letters. "Let me in." I ripped the headset off, slammed it on the counter, and bolted into the office. I locked the door, curled up in the corner, clutching my phone. Of course, no service. I sat there until dawn, shaking, ears straining for every sound. When the morning crew showed up at 6, I practically tackled them when they unlocked the front door. They thought I was nuts, until they saw the window. The handprint was still there, clear as day. They wiped it off, shook their heads, laughed nervously, and told me not to freak myself out. But I noticed something they didn't. The handprint. It wasn't shaped quite right. The fingers were too long, the palm too narrow. I quit a week later. And now, years later, whenever I drive past a Wendy's at night, I can't look at the windows. Because I know he's still out there, watching, waiting. I was 23 when I worked at a Wendy's in West Virginia. It was supposed to be temporary, a paycheck while I figured out what I really wanted to do with my life. I'd only been there 3 months when my manager, Tanya, asked if I could take the closing shift on Friday nights. "Easy money," she promised. "Just clean, restock, lock up. You'll be out by 2 a.m. She left out one detail, though. Closing alone, it's not the same as working with a crew. Not even close. When the dining room is empty, when the fryers are off, and the neon signs hum against the silence, the place doesn't feel like a restaurant anymore. It feels like something else. Something waiting. That Friday started normal enough. The dinner rush died down by 11:30. By midnight, the last of my co-workers left. I locked the doors, waved Tanya off, and settled into my routine. Mop the floors. Check restock sauces. Check wipe the counters until they squeaked. Check by 12:45, the place was spotless. All I had to do was take the trash out back, then I could clock out. I hated the back alley. The dumpster sat under a flickering light that buzzed like a mosquito. On one side was a row of woods, pitch black and endless. On the other, an old chain-link fence separating us from the highway. I hauled the bags outside, gagging at the smell of grease and rot. I tossed them into the dumpster and turned back toward the door. That's when I saw him. A man, standing at the edge of the woods. At first, I thought it was just a shadow. But then he moved. He was tall, rail-thin, dressed in dark clothes that looked damp, like he'd been standing in the rain. His head was tilted slightly to one side, as if studying me. I froze, clutching the empty trash bin. We're closed," I stammered, trying to sound firm. He didn't respond, didn't even flinch, just stood there, watching. I backed toward the door, my hand fumbling for the keys. The man didn't follow. He didn't move at all, just kept staring. I slipped inside, slammed the lock, and pressed my back against the door. My chest heaved. Just some drunk, I whispered to myself. Just some drunk. But deep down, I didn't believe it. I tried to shake it off, get back to closing duties. But as I wiped down the counters, I glanced at the drive-through camera monitor, and my stomach dropped. He was there, standing at the drive-through window now, face inches from the glass. I couldn't see his features clearly. The camera was grainy, but I swear his mouth was open, stretched into something too wide to be a smile. I stumbled back, knocking over the mop bucket. The clatter echoed through the empty restaurant. I grabbed the phone, dialed 911, but the line just clicked and buzzed like static underwater. Dead. When I looked back at the monitor, he was gone. For the next half hour, I jumped at every sound. The ice machine groaning, the hum of the fridge, even my own footsteps. Finally, I decided to screw it. I'd leave the last of the cleaning for tomorrow. I just wanted out. I went to clock out, keys in hand. That's when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks against the front glass door. I froze, staring across the dining room. The man stood there, pressed against the glass. His face was pale, eyes wide and unblinking. His lips moved, but I couldn't hear the words through the door. Then he raised his hand, palm flat against the glass, and dragged it downward, leaving a long, greasy smear. My body acted before my brain. I bolted into the office, slammed the door, and locked it. That's when the lights went out. Every single one. The restaurant plunged into darkness, the only glow coming from the red exit sign above the door. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Inside the building. He was in. I pressed my back against the office wall, praying, trying not to breathe too loud. The footsteps drew closer, the sound of shoes sticking slightly against freshly mopped tile. They stopped, right outside the office door. Silence. Then, tap, 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 his fingernails against the office door. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming, my vision blurred with tears. And then, nothing. Minutes passed, maybe hours. I don't know. At some point, exhaustion overtook terror, and I must have passed out. When I woke, sunlight streamed through the office blinds. The morning crew was banging on the office door, asking why I'd locked myself in. I stumbled out, pale, shaking, trying to explain. They laughed at me, said I was overtired, said I imagined it. But when I walked past the front door, I saw it, a greasy handprint, streaked across the glass, leading downward, exactly where he'd been standing. I quit that day, and now, every time I pass a Wendy's late at night, I can't help but wonder if somewhere inside the shadows of the dining room, he's still standing there, waiting for someone to lock up alone. I never liked the graveyard shift, but bills don't care about preferences, so every Friday night at 11 p.m., I clocked in at the Wendy's off Route 15 just outside Jackson Ridge. The store sat awkwardly in the middle of a half-dead strip mall, a Dollar General with flickering lights on one side, an empty laundromat on the other. Out back, a cracked stretch of pavement led into overgrown brush and a fenced-off drainage canal. Nobody went out there after dark. Nobody. I'd been working there a little over a year, mid-20s, single, scraping by in a basement apartment I could barely afford. Rent was crushing me. The overnight shift paid just a little more, so I took it. I kept telling myself it wasn't forever, just until I caught up. Wendy's closed the dining room at midnight, but drive-through stayed open until 1 a.m. After that, it was just cleaning and stocking. Most nights, it was dead quiet past 12:30, but not that night. That night changed everything. It was October 27th, a Friday. I remember because we had just put up cheap Halloween window clings and someone stuck googly eyes on the frosty machine. The crew that night was thin, just 4 of us. Lucas, our cook, quiet, early 30s. Jazz, a high schooler glued to her phone whenever Monica wasn't looking. Monica, our overnight manager, who mostly stayed in the office, pretending to do inventory while actually scrolling on her iPad. And me, stuck on register and headset, doing bagging when it got busy. It was cold that night, so cold you could see your breath inside the drive-through window whenever it cracked open. Around 12:45 a.m., the last car came through. A pair of college kids laughing too loud, ordering Frosties. I handed them their bag, smiled, and pulled my headset off. "Dead till close," I muttered to Lucas. He just nodded, pouring fryer oil into a steel tub. Jazz wiped tables, earbuds in. Monica disappeared into the back office. I poured myself a small coffee for warmth. My jacket was in my car, parked just outside the back employee door. It was only about 20 feet away. Close enough. Or so I thought. I pushed open the back door, the hinge groaning. The night air cut straight through my thin uniform. The lot was dim, 2 orange security lights buzzing above. The pavement was cracked, weeds pushing through, paint lines nearly invisible. I always parked directly under the closer light, right by the door. I grabbed my jacket, turned back toward the restaurant, and froze. Something moved at the edge of the lot, behind the rusted chain-link fence. At first I thought it was a trick of the shadows, but then I saw it clearly. A figure, tall, motionless, standing just beyond the fence where the pavement ended and brush began. I squinted. "Hello?" No response. I turned quickly, pulled the door open, stepped inside. I told myself it was nothing. A shadow, a tree, my imagination. But the hairs on the back of my neck wouldn't settle. 10 minutes later, I was at the register, sipping my coffee, when Jazz walked up. "There's someone outside," she said. Her face was pale. I frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward the dining room windows. "By the fence." I felt my stomach twist. Lucas came up too, wiping his hands on a rag. We all crowded near the glass, and sure enough, he was there. The same figure, standing behind the fence, perfectly still, facing us. I couldn't make out details. The light didn't reach that far. Just a shape, tall and thin, head tilted slightly. Monica finally came out of the office, annoyed. "What's going on?" When she saw him, the color drained from her face. She muttered, "Stay away from the back door." We tried to get back to work, but none of us could focus. Every few minutes, one of us would glance at the window. He never moved. Not an inch. Finally, Monica said, "It's probably some creep messing around. I'll call the cops." She went into the office, dialed, but when she came back, she looked shaken. "No answer," she said. "It just rang." That was impossible. The police always picked up. That's when the drive-through headset pinged. The sound made me flinch so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. I put the headset back on, voice trembling. "Welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead when you're ready." Static. Then, breathing. Heavy. Male. I froze. "Sir, can you repeat that?" Silence. Then a low voice. "Check the back door." I ripped the headset off, heart pounding. "Who was it?" Lucas asked. Before I could answer, there was a loud bang from the back of the building. We all jumped. Another bang. This time louder. Someone hitting the back door. "Get in the office," Monica shouted. We bolted, locking the office door behind us. The banging continued, echoing through the empty restaurant. Then, silence. Jazz was crying softly. Lucas stood frozen, fists clenched. Monica gripped her phone, muttering that it wasn't possible no one picked up. Then the lights went out. The entire building went dark except for the faint red glow of the office exit sign. And we heard it. Footsteps. Inside the restaurant. Slow. Deliberate. Someone was in. We huddled in the office, too scared to breathe. The footsteps came closer, stopping just outside the office door. For a long moment, nothing. Then, scrape, scrape. The sound of something sharp dragging across the door. Jazz whimpered. I pressed my hand over her mouth to keep her quiet. Then a whisper, muffled but clear. "See you when the lights come back." The footsteps retreated. Silence. We stayed locked in the office until morning crew arrived at 6 a.m. When they opened the door, the restaurant looked normal, clean, quiet, except for one thing. On the back door, smeared across the metal in something dark and sticky, were 3 words written in shaky letters. Not yet. I quit the next day. Lucas quit too. Jazz never came back. Monica transferred to another location. The Wendy's off Route 15 closed down within the year. But sometimes when I drive past that abandoned strip mall at night, I swear I see him. Tall, still, standing just behind the fence, waiting. I started at Wendy's during my sophomore year of college. Cheap meals, steady paycheck, flexible hours. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Most of my shifts were evenings, 5 p.m. to close. The job was boring but predictable. Mop floors, bag orders, clean fryers, stock sauces, lock up by midnight. The only thing I really hated was that damn Frosty machine. It was loud, temperamental, and if you didn't clean it perfectly, it would clog and spit out this gross sludge that smelled like sour milk. Everyone avoided it, so I usually got stuck with the job. But one night, I swear to God, that machine nearly drove me insane. It was late November, cold enough that you could see your breath in the dining room. We were dead slow that night, just me, Tina, shift lead, and Marco, who worked the grill. By 11:30, the last customer had left and Marco clocked out early. Tina went to the office to do paperwork, leaving me alone on the floor. I decided to clean the Frosty machine first to get it over with. I dumped the mix, ran hot water, started the cycle. Normal stuff. But then, the machine made a noise I'd never heard before. Not the usual whir or hiss. Something like a wet, gurgling sound, almost like someone breathing through water. It made the hair on my arms stand up. I stepped back, frowning. "Don't break on me tonight," I muttered. That's when I noticed something dripping from the nozzle. Not chocolate, not vanilla. Something dark, something red. At first, I thought maybe a coworker cut themselves earlier and didn't clean it. But when I grabbed a rag and wiped, the machine kept dripping. Slow. Thick. The smell hit me next. It wasn't blood exactly, but close. Metallic. Sweet and sour at the same time. My stomach twisted. I turned the machine off. Or at least, I thought I did. The switch clicked. The lights blinked out. But the machine kept running. The gurgling grew louder, echoing through the empty dining room. The whole thing shook like something alive was inside it. And then I heard it. A voice. Faint, garbled, buried under the grinding gears. "Let me out." I stumbled back, heart racing. "Tina!" I yelled toward the office. No answer. I tried again, louder. "Tina, get out here!" Nothing. The Frosty machine whined, the sound climbing higher and higher until it was almost a scream. And then, with a violent shudder, it spat something out. Not ice cream, not liquid, something solid. I crouched down, trembling, and saw it. A small tooth lying on the floor, smeared in that dark red sludge. I backed away so fast I nearly slipped. That's when the office door creaked open. Tina stepped out, but she didn't look right. Her uniform was soaked down the front, her eyes unfocused. She walked stiffly like a puppet, and she was holding a cup, a Wendy's cup. She dipped it under the Frosty machine's nozzle. "Want one?" she asked, smiling too wide. The machine poured that thick red sludge into her cup. I bolted. Didn't grab my bag, didn't clock out. I just ran out the front door, straight into the freezing night. I didn't stop until I hit the gas station 2 blocks down. I begged the clerk to call the cops. When they came, the restaurant was dark, empty. No sign of Tina. The Frosty machine was spotless. No sludge, no smell, no tooth. The cops said I must have been tired, hallucinating, stress, lack of sleep. I quit the next day anyway. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. 2 weeks later, I drove past the Wendy's on my way home from class. Just a quick glance at the lit-up windows. And I swear I saw Tina inside, alone, standing by the Frosty machine, filling cup after cup after cup. I'd been working the overnight shift at Wendy's for almost a year by the time it happened. The place was one of those lonely standalones off the highway, far from any real town center, with nothing around it but a rundown gas station and a half-abandoned strip mall. Perfect for people like me, quiet, predictable, and far enough from the chaos of the day shift. I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 5 nights a week. Most nights were uneventful, dead silent after midnight, just me, the fryers, and the faint hum of the neon sign outside. Sometimes a late-night trucker, sometimes a drunk wandering in for fries, but nothing dangerous, until that night in December. It started around 2:05 a.m. I was at the counter cleaning some spills and checking the fryers when the drive-through headset pinged. "Hi, welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead whenever you're ready." No response, just static. I frowned. "Hello?" A pause. Then, heavy breathing, raspy, uneven, like someone had been running. I froze. "Open the back door," a male voice hissed through the headset. At first I laughed nervously. Some prank, probably one of the day shift kids messing with me. But the tone, the urgency in the voice, it wasn't playful. I backed away from the counter. "This isn't funny," I shouted, hoping anyone would answer from the office. Nothing. Then came the first slam, a metallic, deafening crash from the back door, the kind of sound that vibrates through your chest. I jumped, heart pounding, and rushed toward the office. The door was locked. I grabbed the phone, tried calling 911. No signal. I cursed, my hands trembling. The fluorescent lights above flickered, and for a moment I swore I saw a shadow move across the prep area, though I couldn't be sure. Another slam, louder this time. The back door bulged as if someone were pushing with all their weight. I remembered the emergency radio tucked in the drawer, meant for when the office phones failed. I grabbed it and pressed the button. "Gas station manager? Anyone?" I whispered. Static, nothing. I had no choice. I had to see if the door was secure. Slowly I edged toward it, knees shaking. That's when I saw the blood, smears on the handle, dark, sticky streaks across the concrete outside the small window. I stumbled back. My mind screamed to run, but I had nowhere to go. My car was outside, parked in the lot, and that meant I had to cross the open, empty lot. I peeked again at the door, and he was there. A man. Taller than me, broad shoulders, face pale and hollow, eyes wide and unblinking. One shoe missing, shirt torn, soaked in blood, hands trembling, one holding a small black pistol. "Get down," he said. Calm. Too calm. I dropped to the floor, hands up. The smell hit me. Sweat, blood, iron, fear. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I just need your keys. Your phone. That's it." He moved fast, almost a blur, taking my wallet, my phone, my keys. Then he noticed the duct tape on the shelf, something we used for sealing boxes. He grabbed it and waved it in front of me. "Hands behind your back." Now I obeyed. Minutes later, he was gone. Just like that. I could hear the faint roar of my truck's engine as he drove off. I crawled toward the phone, still shaking, still in disbelief. When I finally called 911 from the office line, the dispatcher was calm. But the officers didn't arrive for another 20 minutes. They swept the building, checked the lot, even questioned the neighbors. They found nothing, not a trace of him. No blood, no footprints, no abandoned weapon. Just the lingering smell. The next day, the detectives told me he'd been caught about 40 miles away after crashing my truck into a ditch near a pawn shop. Turns out he was a violent offender, escaped from a transport van 3 days earlier, and had already killed a gas station clerk in a neighboring town. They told me I was lucky. I quit that day, never went back to collect my final check. My nights now? I work with a partner, never alone. Sometimes late at night I still hear a phantom ping, like the drive-through headset calling me back into the empty, dark restaurant. And I swear in the corner of my vision I see him, pale and hollow-eyed, standing just beyond the locked doors, waiting. The isolation of those graveyard shifts, the quiet that once felt like safety, now feels like a predator waiting in the shadows. I never underestimated a night shift again. I never thought working nights at Wendy's could be terrifying. I'd done it several times before. Overnight shifts on deserted highways, quiet streets, sometimes a lone drunk or tired trucker rolling through. It was always boring, predictable, until the night everything went wrong. It was early January, a Friday night. The town was small, barely a blip on the map, and the Wendy's I worked at was at the edge of town, a standalone building surrounded by cracked pavement, an abandoned car wash, and some overgrown fields that disappeared into darkness. Perfect for night shifts, or so I thought. I arrived at 10:45 p.m., earlier than usual because I wanted to organize the stockroom. The parking lot was empty, the neon sign flickering softly. I could see my breath in the frigid air as I locked the front door behind me. The lot was deserted save for a lone raccoon scavenging near the dumpster. Inside, the store was warm, smelled like fries and grilled chicken. Lucas, the cook, was already prepping the fryer. Jazz, a high schooler, was wiping tables, earbuds in, and Monica, the overnight manager, settled in the office monitoring cameras. I greeted them and went straight to the counter, checking the registers and stocking sauces. By midnight, the store emptied. The last car rolled through at 11:55 p.m., a tired trucker with a large order. After that, nothing. The night stretched silent like time itself had stopped. Around 12:30 a.m., I decided to take a short break, grabbing a coffee and leaning against the counter. The headset pinged, a soft, almost tentative sound. "Hi, welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead whenever you're ready," I said in the polite, practiced tone I had perfected. No response. I frowned. "Hello?" Only static. Then, a soft, raspy voice. Male. "Don't turn around." My heart stopped. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. "Who's there?" I whispered, scanning the empty parking lot through the front window. No one. Nothing. I thought maybe someone was playing a prank through the headset. But there was no laughter, no delay, just the voice, calm but chillingly sharp. "Just open the back door," it said. I backed away slowly, adrenaline flooding my system. "This isn't funny," I yelled, but my voice sounded small, weak. The office phone had no signal. My phone was on silent, no bars. I grabbed the emergency radio Monica had mentioned once, supposed to reach the gas station across the street. But all I heard was static. A loud bang reverberated through the back door. I stumbled, nearly falling into the counter. My vision blurred, my mind raced. Someone was inside the perimeter, somewhere beyond my line of sight. Another bang, louder this time. The steel door flexed under the impact. I knew I couldn't stay in the open. I had to hide. I scrambled into the office, locking the door behind me. My hands shook uncontrollably. I watched the security monitors, but they were mostly dark. Those back cameras never had great visibility at night. And then I saw him. A figure moving in the shadows outside the back door. Tall, broad, pale face obscured by a hood. One arm bent awkwardly as if injured. He wasn't running. He was deliberate, calculating. I could feel his eyes on me even through the camera screen. My heart hammered. I grabbed a heavy flashlight and edged toward the kitchen, planning to make a run for the front exit. That's when the back door rattled violently. Something slid against the steel. Blood? I wasn't sure. Then silence. I crouched, holding my breath. The building felt impossibly quiet. Even the fryer hummed faintly like a distant reminder of normalcy. A movement caught my eye, the drive-through window. The latch was slightly ajar. I hadn't left it cracked, had I? The man was inside. He stepped into the kitchen, bloodied, one shoe missing, dark stains on his jeans. His eyes were hollow, dead yet aware, a small pistol in his hand. "Don't move," he said. Calm. Too calm. I obeyed, knees on the greasy tile, hands raised. The smell of iron and sweat filled the room. "I don't want to hurt you," he said. "I just need your car, your keys, that's all." He moved like a predator, fast, precise. Took my keys, phone, and wallet, then paused, noticing a roll of duct tape I had left near the counter for sealing boxes. He grabbed it, waving it at me. "Hands behind your back." Now I obeyed. My stomach churned. Fear, adrenaline, and disbelief crashed together. Minutes later, he was gone. Just like that. The jingling of my keys, the back door opening, and the faint roar of my truck's engine disappeared into the distance. I sat there for what felt like hours. Eventually, I freed myself from the tape, crawled to the office phone, and dialed 911. The police arrived 20 minutes later, cleared the building, and found nothing. Not a footprint, not a weapon, just the lingering smell of blood and sweat. The next day, I learned he had been caught miles away, injured, red and desperate, a violent offender who had already hurt someone else while on the run. They told me I was lucky. I didn't argue. I never returned to that Wendy's, never collected my last paycheck. Nights now, I work with a partner, never alone. Sometimes when I drive past a lonely highway fast food restaurant, I feel that same chill, the quiet that isn't quiet, the shadow that isn't a shadow. And I remember the soft, haunting ping of a headset, calling me back to the night that almost cost me my life.